PopCultureZone.com is an online shop focusing on hot new comics, including exclusive and incentive variants, CGC graded comics, and tons of other inventory, including pop culture toys and other collectibles, all at low and competitive prices. PopCultureZone.com ships all over the US. And if you are buying raw comics, they offer flat rate shipping of only $4.99. That's right, $4.99. Absolute craziness, right? And there's no taxes included, excluding New Jersey. Pop Culture Zone is also on eBay, where they hold a 100% positive feedback rating with over 8,000 completed transactions for this year alone. Make sure to check out the link to their website below, as well as their eBay link, so be sure to give them a follow there as well.
All right, guys, the new and improved props or flops. This is where you all, the community, get to participate in another segment on Comic Book Canon. All you guys got to do is upload any comic book to Instagram. All right, this comic book should be a comic book that maybe you just purchased, or maybe that you're in the market to purchase. It's something that you're speculating on, something that you're looking to purchase as an investment. Post the picture up on IG. Talk about it. If you just purchased it, maybe say, I just picked this up for X amount of dollars because of this, this, and that. Maybe they're coming out in a movie, or maybe you think they're going to show up in the MCU. I just paid this much. What do you think, guys? Chris, Comic Book Canon, what do you think? Props or flops? Did I make a good investment decision? When you post them, make sure you use the hashtag props or flops. You also want to tag me, Journos Comics, and also tag Comic Book Canon. All right, we will break it down on the break the market down for you live on our show. Of course, we can't pick every book every week, but we like to pick specifically 3. Could be even more at some point in time in the future, but we got 3 today that we're gonna go over some awesome submissions, and I highly recommend all you guys this coming week for our next week's show. Let's get some submissions in, and we can show your book off and break down the market.
And we want to hear from you in the audience too, props or flops on these specific books. So please let us know. All right, let's get to it. Chris, you have an order in here, and I cannot see on the thumbnail which is what. So I'm going to do my best. Here we go.
Let's go with how about some Star Wars action?
Got it. Boom.
All right, here we go. We got an awesome, look at this, CBCS, a 9.2 Star Wars #1, the Volume 1 Marvel run. That's a beauty right there for sure. So this is from Newman. I think it's Newman's Own Cards. That's what I believe is going on here with the handle. If I say that wrong, I apologize. Grail acquired. Star Wars #1. Had to pick this up to wrap up my chase to complete Star Wars issues number 1 through 10 in a 9.0 or better. First off, I like that goal. That's pretty awesome. Paid $413 for it. I think after CPR, it has the potential to yield a 9.4 to 9.6. I zoomed in on this picture, and although you can't really tell with pictures, it looks clean. I mean, I didn't see any color breaking spine ticks in that spine. Top right corner might be a little blended. I don't know about a 9.6 just looking at the picture, but it definitely looks like there could be room for improvement. But going on here, they further state, didn't foresee it happening this soon, but here we are, happy to have done a deal with Shortboxed at Rose City Comic Con. Excited to get this cracked, pressed, and clean. Fair enough price for a proper CPR treatment, considering the case was cracked already. Ooh, so the book had the case had a crack in it. Already handed this over to Under Pressure Comics. I believe they're probably doing the pressing, hence Under Pressure Comics. That's a very, I like that name for a pressing company, by the way. So, props or flops? I'm not going to beat around this bush, guys. It would be very hard to give this book a props. But one thing that you have to consider here, being that it's known, we have a price point, okay? So I know what they paid. So say, for example, hey, I just bought this and I paid $3,000 for it. Props or flops? That's a flops all the way, because I'm sorry, even though it's Star Wars #1, in a 9.2 even, it's not worth $3,000 yet. So looking at what they paid for it, definitely under the fair market value, the average fair market value of a graded 9.2. Now, of course, that fair market value is heavily based on CGC 9.2s. And we all should know, or most of us know, that CGC tends to get slightly higher pull in price point when it comes to graded comics than CBCS. But another thing that you need to take into consideration here is that the case is cracked. So I'm sure that price point, took that into consideration, and that's why he got such a good deal. This book hovering around, over $500, fair market value 9.2. You also got to consider the fact that this individual might get at least one grade bump by pressing and cleaning this book. So I think overall, this is absolutely a props. I mean, it's even if they were just buying it cracked the way it is, and they were keeping it in that case, I would still give it a props for $413. And the reason why is because this is a long-term investment. This, in my humble opinion, is a blue chip key of the future. And you can quite honestly argue that it's a blue chip key right now, but it's a book that didn't get a lot of love that it deserved for a very long time. It's definitely been getting that love on the market for the last few years or so. This is a book that's going to continue to increase in value. It doesn't matter what the Star Wars shows do, if there's any more Star Wars movies. For what he did, what he paid for this book, big, huge props all the way.
Yeah, I'll take it next real quick. I think it's props. This book is history, right? It's historic in a way, and I'm not talking some monumental historic thing, but it is part of a pop sensation that took over how things are done in terms of blockbusters, in terms of toys, in terms of other media, and this kind of exemplifies that. And I'm saying props as well, but I love what Maz says here. I really do. This is a cool key, but I don't see it really taking off. I feel the best keys from Star Wars will be new standout characters. Is there anything new left in this book? That's a really good point, because I do think there's going to be a lot of stock taken from these new books, the High Republic, what they're going to be doing with those films.
I agree there.
I still think that this thing will continue to rise. But I just like what he's saying here. Danny, would you like to kind of chime in on this book?
I say props as well. I didn't know that FMV was, above 500. So to get it, way below FMV, plus it's the start of it all. Even though it's nothing new in it, it's where it began. So I still think it's a props just because, like you said, it's history. And if you want to go back to the beginning, that's the book you need.
Okay, so we're all agreeing here. It's props. Chris, you wanted to comment on Maz here.
Yeah, and I know Maz don't, we love to do this. We love getting different points of views and opinions. So when I do this, please don't take it as anything negative. This is great. I love when we have opposing viewpoints. Maz makes a great point. There is so much stock, especially if you look at it like penny stocks that have a bright future, right? I think you can look at what he's talking about as these new kids on the market, penny stocks, so to say, that have a lot of room for growth. But you're looking at it specifically from a live action spec perception or a spec value. This book, and this is where we lose sight, comic books are valuable collectibles without MCU spec or live action spec or option spec, and they've been that way for decades. This idea of live action properties specking on comic books due to them and pairing those up is very, very new. This is the first time that we get Star Wars, the brand, the trademark, the characters, the original storyline in a comic book. Therefore, and you got to look at the age of the book. It is a Bronze Age book. This book is 45 years old, and it's going to continue aging. This book will absolutely outlast, and in my humble opinion, outprice even books today that are still hitting, like Clone Wars, first appearance of Ahsoka, like all of the first appearance of Dr. Aphra. Those will not hold the weight. Those all will hold weight, but that's a bigger conversation. That's a whole Star Wars conversation in and of itself, because there's a lot of value to be had there. But this book, this is where it started it all. Come back in 10 years and let's look at the value of this book and we can revisit this conversation. I stand behind this book hands down. This is the blue chip key of Star Wars books.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're all agreeing here. It's props in terms of the show, the hosts here. Love again the conversation we're having. Let's keep this going because we have another book for props or flops. What is it, Chris?
All right. Which way we going? Let's do how about some Spider-Man? And not Peter Parker Spider-Man, but Miles Morales. We got Spider-Man number 12 here, the Bocelli variant. This book is awesome. Well, I'll just read what Jacob Comics says here. This is Jacob Comics submission. I don't know. Is Jacob here tonight? If he is,
I saw him here. He's definitely
here.
around here. Not sure if he's still here.
All right. Jacob says, props or flops, Spider-Man number 12 from March of 2017. I think this book is destined to be sought after by collectors. An amazing cover by Sarah Pacelli, story by Brian Michael Bendis, an homage to the Raimi Spider-Man scene, the upside down kiss, obviously. And we all know these two are destined to hook up on the big screen, possibly this year. Oh, that would be awesome, right? All right. Great cover. Great depiction in terms of the homage from the original Sam Raimi film. I think this is a great book to have, especially variants. I personally don't collect a lot of variants. I don't pay over cover price for variants. This is definitely one that stands out for me. It is, or has been, selling for over $300. It was selling for over $300 when the Across the Spider-Verse trailer dropped. I believe it dropped this last spring, somewhere around there. Now, over the last couple of months, and again, this is for a 9.8. Obviously, it's CGC 9.8. The last couple of months, it hasn't even hit over. It can't even hit 200. Raw, it hasn't been moving very many units at all. I mean, there's some sporadically, but again, when the trailer dropped last spring going into the summer, I mean, you saw a plethora of these books being sold, decent amount, day to day, eBay, My Comic Shop, until they sold out. And pricing there topped around $40 to $50. Right now, you still see some, the high grade raws that are looking, buyers are looking at 9.8 potentials. They're still hitting around $40. So that hasn't dropped as much as the 9.8. Now, I agree with what Jacob's saying here. Just what the cover homages, right? And the fact that there is speculation on what's going to happen in this upcoming Spider-Verse film. We know what the first one did to Miles Morales. It really helped bring his character to the forefront, introduce it to new audiences. I think this sequel is going to continue that. I think it's going to bring all of those that love Miles before back into the theaters, and they're going to come out loving him even more. I think it's going to bring what has it been? 4 years, right? And it's going to be another year, right, before this movie comes out. I mean, you're gonna have little 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds that probably weren't even old enough 4 to 5 years ago when the first one came out, and they're gonna be introduced to this, and they're gonna be loving it. People are gonna be coming back to the comic books. I know this, but props or flops on this specific book. I don't have the price that Jacob paid. I don't know if Jacob had this raw and sent it into CGC himself and just paid the fees and he got a 9.8 out of it. But specifically speaking, if you were to buy this in a 9.8 right now, I'd give it a flops. Simply because the market right now, especially with the economy, is a bit volatile, and nobody is looking at this book, and it would be very easy to overpay. Okay. But here's the silver lining here. I'm giving it flops just from this perspective. So everyone here is cautious if they're in the market of this book. I had it raw and I'm in it for $30. So right there, I would give it a props. So you see how it changes, guys. But again, let's I still want to keep. I'm not changing my tone, right? I would not touch this book in a 9.8 right now for even what it's going right now in a 9.8. What I would do personally, this is just me, I would probably go try to find some for probably around that $30 mark and maybe buy a couple raw. And Jeff, and Danny, I do talk about this constantly on this show. I am just somebody that doesn't go out and buy 9.8s because of a lot of different factors, especially with modern books. But I will say this, Jacob, the flops is simply to give you guys all a fair warning to take heed and to be cautious with this book. But and simply too, guys, as a Miles book, I don't necessarily think this is ever going to be an extremely valuable book. But here's the silver lining in this, especially for Jacob being in it for 30 and then going and getting it pressed up and getting a 9.8. If they do, to Jacob's point, if they hook up in that movie, if they do,
yeah,
he could go sell this book at a 9.8 and probably get that 300 or more that it was selling for at the trailer, but it probably won't last. It'll cool off again. So you got to play the market correctly.
Danny, your thoughts?
So I'm biased because Miles is one of my favorite characters. So I'm going to give any Miles book a props. That's just how I am. I'm a big fan, but I agree. I'm going to give it a props, but I think, like you said, it's not going to hold. I think it would be just boom, okay, that moment happened, and then it'll probably just, plateau from there. I don't think it's going to one that keeps going up and up, but I still give it a props because it's Miles.
Yeah, I'll give it a props too, especially he paid $30 or he's all in for $30, including, I guess, the grading. And completely agree with you guys in terms of it'll spike and then it'll come back down hard, right? If this does happen on screen, if it does happen in the MCU, you see that a lot with a variety of characters in the MCU where people are all in and all of a sudden it just goes flat. So I'll agree with that too, but overall I'll give it a props, especially with what Jacob specifically spent on it and where it's at now.
Yep. And I want to use this as an example, and thank you, Jacob, for adding that context. This dynamic, and if you look at all three of our opinions, it really shows you guys watching that this idea of props or flops, it really is all about timing and the purchasing decisions that you're making. It's not just simply, is this book a props or a flops? It's all about how you guys are, playing the game in the market, on the marketplace, and if you're being smart about your purchasing decisions, and those things are always very important.
Absolutely. All right, one more book this week. What do we got, Chris?
All right.
I like this one.
Yeah. This is it. This is going to be an interesting one to talk about. We got some Fantastic Four action, folks, from Raising Elm. Raising Elm, one of our semifinalists from Fresh from the Comic Shop for the month of September. All right, Raising Elm says this about Fantastic Four 265. Now that She-Hulk has joined the MCU with their own show, some of her key issues could and should start picking up heat. For this week's submission, I give you Fantastic Four issue 265, which is key because that's when She-Hulk joins the Fantastic Four after the Thing quits. We already know the Fantastic Four is coming, and rumors have surfaced that the Thing may cameo on the show. Could Ben Grimm make his debut via incarceration, causing Jennifer Walters to fill in for him on the Fantastic Four? We know Kevin Feige wants to do Marvel's first Family Justice, so why not do something a little different than the previous two versions? I don't yet own a copy, but you could still find this book raw and graded for under $100. Thoughts? Wow. All right, well, I thought that looking at the Pacelli variant for Miles and Gwen was one that is very much all about like timing and price point. This one is even more like that. And this is a tough one because, again, Raising Elm brings up a lot of good key factors. She-Hulk could absolutely join the Fantastic Four. Kevin Feige likes to do things differently, especially with these Fox properties that we've seen before. I simply don't have the answer. The purist in me wants to believe that there's no way they can go that route and really introduce a Fantastic Four and one of the four members be She-Hulk. I just can't see that happening. First family and all that. But we know how Kevin Feige likes to shake things up. Oh, my goodness. How do we do this? I'm going to do, I guess, and Jeff, you're probably going to hate me, but I'm going to kind of break the rules again, and I'm going to look at this from two ways, okay? Again, and it's going to be similar to what I said about the Miles book. Buying this book graded is a flops all day long for me. All day long. Flops all day long, buying it graded. I don't care what grade. You know, of course, unless somebody's selling a 9.8 for freaking $30. You guys know what I'm saying here when I say graded books flops. This book isn't even, I mean, there's not even anybody looking at it because there was like one graded sale of a 9.8 in the last 5 years of this book. That's a fact. You guys can go look. At least online. There's not enough here for me to say that this is a book I'm going to spend. Oh, and by the way, that 9.8 it did sell for over $100. I think it was like 170 or something like that. I'm not doing it. I'm not spending $80 on a 9.8. I'm not spending $70 on a 9.8. I'm not even spending $50 on a 9.8 of this book. There is a lot going on for the She-Hulk character, but there's also a lot of controversy. Now, whether you agree with the controversy or not, it's there. A plus side is this. We could get She-Hulk outside of her own show, and we could get a completely different vibe of She-Hulk if she's in an Avengers movie or if she's in a Fantastic Four movie. You know, because I think this show is a sitcom. It's marketed to a different, type of fan, and that's okay. We see how personalities can change up. I think we saw that with Guardians. They took a different tone when they were with the Russo brothers, although they still had their grounded essence in what they were in their own films. Spider-Man, he takes a different tone in his original trilogy next to, hanging out with the Avengers and facing more serious threats. All of these are positives where people could come and look at this book, but this book isn't going to do absolutely anything unless we do indeed see She-Hulk becoming a member of the Fantastic Four. So the only way, I'm really giving this book flops all the way around. The only way I won't give it flops, and the only way I will give a raw book flops, is if you're finding these books in the back issue bins for $3 and under. And that's the only way, because there's no real risk involved. And even if something happens with her joining Fantastic Four and it does this and it fades out, at least then you got a couple copies, you could flip it, make a little money. But other than that, I can't invest anything into this book.
Danny.
Yeah, it's a flop for me as well. I personally wouldn't invest in it. And it's mainly because of the way the show has been received. Now, I actually am a fan of the show. I laugh a lot and I enjoy it. But like you said, with the controversy, for me, it's just the way it's been received by a lot of people. Even if she did join the Fantastic Four, I just don't see that this is a book that would just take off. And it's just because of the way it started. Now, maybe they can change it up. Maybe she'll grow in the MCU. Maybe it'll do better. But even still with that, I just don't think it's a book that would just explode at any point.
I'll agree with it not exploding. I would say it's a prop with a asterisk. Like I get it for, I think I got this for $5 in the, back issue bin. And I was all over it because first of all, I love John Byrne. Second of all, I mean, if you think about it, the Fantastic Four were the Fantastic Four for so long, and then She-Hulk joined, and that's just crazy. However, that playing out in the MCU at the get-go is highly unlikely. You gotta honor what the Fantastic Four are, the first family of Marvel, and you gotta bring in all the original characters the way they are. I've never heard any rumor about Ben Grimm showing up in the She-Hulk series. Do we have one more episode left? Yeah, one more, right?
One, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard that. Not to say it couldn't happen, but I really think they are going to do things right with how piss poor all of those Fantastic Four movies were. All of them. There was nothing redeemed. There was nothing good about any of them, in my opinion. So,
Silver Surfer
was
Lawrence Fishburne.
okay, but then Galactus, you know?
Horrible.
Yeah. So there you go. But I would give this book a props just for its historic significance alone, because she's always going to be associated with the Fantastic Four. She's always going to be associated with the Avengers. She will be a mainstay in the MCU. This is not the I love the series as well. I think it's great. It's refreshing. And I think more people love it than hate it. And I think she's a mainstay in the MCU. She's already got, I'm sure they've already planned the next 5 appearances after her series, whether it be season 2 or they're talking New World Order. So anyways, I'll give it a props. And you guys are both giving it a flops. So this is our only disagreement. You guys outweigh me, and I'll just...
It's not that serious.
You're right.
Jeff, I want to add one more thing, though.
Go for it.
It's very interesting with what you said, because I would actually value this more for those intrinsic factors than MCU spec.
Mhm.
Just because it's what John Byrne was doing with the run, like you said, the changing up of the Fantastic Four, and that it's an early Copper Age book, and as it ages out, I think those things will. And again, not to say that it's going to ever be something, but I see it maybe going from a $5, $7, maybe $10, and hey, maybe one day $20 book, because of those reasons. As collectors, looking at those instead of MCU spec factors. So.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. We'll end it on this. P. Keel. I buy the book, but it better be cheaper than my Saturday Night Girlfriend. I don't know where you're taking your Saturday Night Girlfriend, but geez, oh my gosh, I don't even want to know. All right. And there you have it. Props or flops. We'll have 3 new books next week. Don't you forget. Chris, let's just remind everybody how they get involved with props or flops, shall we?
Guys, one more time, whether it's something you just picked up, you're thinking about picking up, upload any comic to IG, use the hashtag props or flops. And because IG's hashtags are crap, make sure you
really are. They really are.
Make sure you at me, journos_comics. Make sure you at Comic Book Canon. Tell us why the book interests you. We'll break down the market live on our show.